Hey guys, me again, Orcsler. What is where I last left off? Let's see, checking. Where I last left off, well, Izuku and them, or Deku, all are having a very, very bad time. Because where I last left off, if I remember, Fulcrum showed up again. Give me a sec. Sorry, I had to go away from it. Where was I? Ah, yes. Deku and them are quite boned right now. See, what happened is that Fulcrum, the Chaos Psyker, and his disciple, or trainee, you could call him Shigaraki, appeared in the USJ saying, "Hello." Yeah, Fulcrum immediately recognized Deku and ordered the Nomu to pretty much kill that man. As you also noticed, Sato, who was decked out head to toe in armor, as he saw him and knew that there were more, that they could possibly even have even more so. Sorry if you guys hear that chewing. I gave the dogs treats to chew on, so that way they don't come over here and whine at me. What is that? Nothing important. Sorry. As they were all teleported around, Deku and Sato stayed right there, as Izumi was teleported halfway across the planet. As now everyone's there, as they got reinforced by the entire group of lamenters. They got their Terminators, they even got Agron up. They're like, "Get up!" As Hizashi's there, every single person of the 40k universe, you could call it, is right there in that room. As when the villains and such started slaughtering each other, Fulcrum took this as a chance to use that slaughter and such to summon the demon that he thought would be right for the job. He summoned a greater demon of Corn. Not the greatest of greats, like Kabanda and such, but he summoned one that was like a low tier one. You could call a low tier greater demon. As we cut over to where everyone else hear that and smashing of lightning and such, where everyone teleported in, and then they saw somewhere overhead where there was the skies darkened as they couldn't believe it, and there was blood raining down. Suyu sees this all from her nice little boat. She's looking over there in horror as she's like, "What is going on over there?" As then you see Momo and them. Even Bakugo and Kirishima heard that whole screaming, blood killing. As they looked outside, they saw villains ripping each other to shreds. As Bakugo's like, "What's happening?" As Kirishima's like, "Why the hell are the villains killing each other? It doesn't seem very manly to kill your own teammates." As Bakugo says, "I don't think that's what this is, you idiot." As they're looking around, as a villain tried to jump out them out of nowhere, but Bakugo turned around, and in his fear, because Bakugo seeing people literally disembowel each other, he's somewhat taken off guard, so he puts his hand up and gives a actual explosion intending to kill. As that villain's head is now completely there's no head really. As Kirishima was like, "Whoa man, you didn't have to." As Bakugo's shaking, as he's like, "Oh man, calm down. Alright, let's head to the center. That's where everyone else was, right?" As Kirishima was like, "Yeah, but how are we going to get through that?" He's like, "We're not." As he grabs Kirishima and pretty much just jumps out the window and blasts off. As Momo and all of them even make their way over to where Deku is. As they come over, they see them standing on top of the hills as Bakugo lands down by the forest area as they're looking over. As they're somewhere around there, and Momo and all of them are looking over too, as everyone's who could have got there is just looking at this moment. As when Deku heard that explosion, he saw Bakugo flying over. He's like, Bakugo will prove useful in this battle, I'm sure of it. As all the Space Marines stand there, as Agron is pretty much just standing in the middle, whirling up his bolter cannons, you could call it. As then you got Captain you got Captain and everyone right there waiting to kill him, waiting to attack. As they're like, "When do we start, Captain?" And Navron stand there. Hizashi stands there among his brothers, you could call it, as they're just waiting, as they hear the corn greater demon spouting off his words of encouragement to his brothers, you could call it, as he puts that term, my brothers of corn. As he starts giving them the words of encouragement, we will have sweet slaughter in honor of our God, and of worthy warriors such as the sons of Sanguinius. As the berserkers that he's actually summoned a few Chaos Space Marines around him, but the majority of his force consists of demons and such. Luckily for the lamenters, they have a nice little they have a decently sized group of librarians. As the grand librarian, I'll call him that, is standing right there in Terminator armor. As the leaders of the groups all have Terminator armor on, even Nevron and such. They got like one squad of Terminators that are independent, you could call it. As his captain says, men
of the Lamenters chapter, hear my words now. We shall stop this chaos incursion here and now. For those we cherish, we die in glory. As
he picks up his weapon, he has a heavy bolter in one hand, and he has, well, a power fist in another, as the words are repeated all over his thing.
For those we cherish, we die in glory. As this word is echoed all over, and Deku and Sato stand there as they repeat the words, for those we cherish, we die in glory. As Deku stands
next to his family, as he flies up into the air, as other demons of corn start going up in the air as well, as there are some with wings, I believe. There's not a lot, but there are a few. As they fly up, Deku brings out his bolter, and he takes with his chainsword, saying,
"Come, demons, you are not the first to taste for my blade to taste, and you will not be the last." As he
smashes right into the ones in the air, sending down shots to below. The rest of the Lamenters say, "Charge!" as they all start running down, as everyone sees this epic clash. And if you all remember, I said All Might was there even, as he charges at the Nomu, creating that massive clash with him. As it sends waves all over, the demons of Corn are having difficulty staying up in the air, while to everyone else, it seems Deku's just gracefully gliding on the wind. As he smashes down into him, he says,
"Die, demons, for I am the son of Sanguinius, and we know no fear." As he
smashes into more and more, just butchering as many as he can. As the demons and berserkers are charging at the other space marines, as they come to a massive clash. As Fulcrum and Shigaraki says, "Master," Master, should we interfere with this? As Fulcrum says, "No. You are not ready for this kind of battle, Shigaraki. You can take on almost anyone in a duel, I would say, as far as I've seen. But as for a massive battle like this, there are too many variables, and your master would not be pleased if you died. Neither will I." As he says, "Kurogiri, take us from here. The demons shall help the Nomu creature kill that being you call All Might. For now we retreat." As he takes a step back, as he thinks there is a chance for the greater demon to actually pull his weight and kill a majority of these space marines, because even if they don't win, they will do damage. As this is already being seen as, with the warp being more active in this little part of the area, the Lamenter's bad luck kicks in, as some Lamenters go to stab a berserker, and their blade shatters, as they're like, "Shit!" as they go to switch to their sidearm, as they're able to just save themselves in the nick of time. But not all of them are that lucky. As over the battlefield, you see miniature things of that same thing happening, where some have the quick enough reflexes to save themselves, while others are injured severely. The Lamenters are not unused. Are not are not unused to this. They are used to this kind of situation where Luck decides to go fuck you. Because if you guys know, they fought the Minotaurs chapter, which were at full strength, and the Lamenters were at, I believe it was less than full strength, if not half strength. As they fought the Minotaurs, not just tooth and nail, they fought them to blood and bone. As they were able to take the Minotaurs from a full strength chapter, as far as I know, they didn't really receive any damage to personnel or anything. As the Lamenters brought them very, very low with the amount of deaths they incurred against the Minotaurs. They didn't win, of course, because, you know, the Lamenters never fucking win. And when they do win, it's more or less, we just barely survived. And with that, well, you know, the Lamenters barely made it out, and thankfully the Minotaurs didn't wipe them out, or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, because I'm pretty sure a lot of the Lamenters would rather be dead by now, since of their terrible, terrible, terrible luck. Sorry if you hear whining. Again, Samson always whines at me when I record, because I'm not paying attention to him. He's an attention hog. Stop it. No. As well. We continue the story with the battle. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. I somewhat forgot my place in the story. Ah, yes. Fulcrum and all of them leave, and now Deku and all of them are battling against an entire fucking horde of demons. As I was also explaining a bit about how the Lamenters got their asses kicked. Well, actually, they didn't really get their asses kicked. They more or less... They both got their asses kicked to some degree. With the Lamenters, I'm pretty sure doing more of an ass kicking, and they just had to surrender because they did not have enough men to fight back. I feel like if they were at full strength, I feel like they could have actually forced the Minotaurs to retreat, because they were at like maybe 5, 7. I think it was like 5, maybe 5. It's between like 300 and 500 Space Marines they had. And they brought the Minotaurs to like 300, with the Lamenters having a 200 left. Something along those lines. I'm most likely getting the numbers really messed up. But I digress. With Deku and them fighting against these coordinate demons... Well, you know what? I take back what I said about Fulcrum leaving. He actually says, Kurogiri, take Shigaraki and leave. I shall deal with this nuisance. So he walks over, zapping Marines with lightning and killing them. As the Space Marines scream, Librarians, we have a Psyker! He's decked out in Zinch-like armor, like the warriors we fought before we came here. As well, Fulcrum says, my suspicions are confirmed. You are of that one company. To think you've came to this world as I did. Though that is thanks to the little angel's wing. Or angel's feather. As he holds it up, he's like, You have brought much luck to me indeed. As when he gets back to fighting, you see Agron actually charging the greater demon of Corn. As they sort of are, as I believe, Dreadnoughts are able to fight very high tier or very like noteworthy Dreadnoughts and such, like what was it, Bjorn Fellhanded was actually able to fight Magnus the Red by himself for a period of time, as I believe that is the same aspect in a few other things I've seen or heard about, is that Dreadnoughts are able to fight Primarchs for a period of time. Some of them are noteworthy ones. Let's say Agron is a noteworthy one. So we haven't been able to see him do much aside from, you know, squash lesser beings, we'll call them. As he's fighting with this greater demon, he smashes his hand into it as it actually creates this nice crash sound as the greater demon is sent off its feet. As he says,
Foul demon, I am Argaron, the once captain of the Lamenters' 5th Company. I have seen more death and brutality than you will ever. As a greater demon says, I am a Corn
I am a greater demon of corn. I am born of blood and carnage. As Agron says, blood and carnage are nothing to the great dream of humanity. As
Izumi and Inko right now are blasting away at demons, sending them back to the wolf. We banish you! Bzz. As the librarians work in tandem with them, try and banish quite a few of them. As we get to Deku and Hizashi, with Nevron there even. As Deku comes crashing down on top of a couple of demons and a space marine, he says, "Father, when this tide seems to be vicious, almost as vicious as those Zinch sorcerers we fought maybe a few years ago." As the captain says, "Indeed, Deku, but this is not the time to reminisce," as he punches one demon right in the face, and then pretty much unloads a lot of ammo into a berserker charging at him. Nevron unleashing with a heavy flamer, and then a power maul says, "I agree," as he smashes one across the face. As Hizashi says, "Keep moving, Deku. Do not stop. Help all over the battlefield." As he is just shooting with a bolter, he's very generic. He sees Fulcrum look at him. As they lock eyes across the battlefield, Hizashi starts walking towards him and just starts shooting off shots. As there's bang, bang. As the Zinch sorcerer just blocks him with a shield as they cuts away a space marine charging at him. As Hizashi drops his bolter, he has run out of ammo. He's been shooting it that much. He picks up a chain axe and just charges forward. They clash. As Hizashi doesn't know what it is, but he knows that this chaos, that the Zinch or whatever, the Psyker, is the main one responsible for this fiasco. As he says, "You'll end this now, or I shall take your head." As well, Fulcrum says, "You can try, cur." As he throws off his sword and starts trying to fight with Hizashi. As Deku's taking care of tougher demons among the battlefield, slicing and stabbing into them. As he runs out of ammo, he takes a grenade and tosses it over. As we get to Sato, as he smashes down on more demons, he says, "Come! I may not be as skilled as some of the others, but I'm sure as hell I am stronger." Sorry, my notes was clogged for a bit. As he says, "I may not be as experienced as the others," and I rethought what I said. "I may not be as good as the others, but I am just as strong," as he smashes into the ground, causing a little bit of an earthquake for those around him. As then he steps on more. He says, I am the protege of Izuku. Fear me!" As he starts going at it again and again, just tearing them apart. As everyone's just in awe of the sight, as All Might by this point is just punched the Nomu out of the USJ. As Fulcrum, when he saw that, says, "Huh, that useless thing. Would have been better if I infused it with the powers of the warp. Never mind it." As he takes this step, as he disengages from Hizashi for a bit. As at this point, Agron and that greater demon are trying to kill each other even more so. But a bunch of smaller demons jump on Agron as he's trying to shake it off. As then, well, the greater demon smashes his weapon right into Agron's arm and rips it off. As they begin to overpower him and try to claw into the sarcophagus that holds Agron's body. And how a dreadnought is created is basically a space marine is mortally wounded to a point that you can't just patch him up, even by space marine standards. If they are good enough, they are put into a sarcophagus like thing where it has a bunch of machinery and such that keeps them alive. And what it does is that while it keeps them alive, it allows them to maintain a presence on the battlefield somewhat. Most of them are revered heavily, like Bjorn the Fell-Handed, as I said earlier. You got I'll just say Bjorn for now, since he's the one that I can remember the most. There's another one, but I can't remember his name. or their names. He's being overwhelmed. They put him in a sarcophagus and then they're sent off to fight again. And they typically are put to sleep so that way their bodies don't debilitate or degrade as fast. That's what happens with Bjorn, is that he's been a dreadnought for so long that he's woken up in only the greatest times of need. Also to tell stories sometimes. He was the first chapter master of the Space Wolves when they became a chapter instead of the Legion. So, aside from that, what happens now is, as Deku and all of them see this, some of the Space Marines disengage their targets and try to save Agron, as in they're cut in half by the Greater Demon. As he lets out his roar, Hisashi thinks I should probably disengage as well. As then he sees Deku and Sato charging over there. As it says, "Come!" As they start blast, as Deku pretty much tries to dive at him, as he grabs a fallen brother's weapon, as he flies at the Greater Demon, somewhat not a rage, but in a fury, smashing his swords. As Deku finishes charging at this Greater Demon, with Hisashi's attention away for but only a moment, several demons and berserkers jump on him, with Fulcrum taking this point to fall back. As Deku's dueling with a Greater Demon, to some extent, this is still a Greater Demon. As Sato punches the Greater Demon in the back, Deku and him are pretty much having to tag team it to try and even stand a chance, because Primarchs are able to take on the greatest of Greater Demons. So I'll say Demi Primarch with a bit of help could defeat a lesser Greater Demon, if that makes sense. As he's pretty much dueling with it, as the Greater Demon makes a comment on how this reminds him so much of how Kabanda and Sanguinius first fought. Surrounded by an army on both their sides, as both of them struggle to kill one another, except he doesn't have a giant whip or bat wings. He just keeps on making comments, saying how he remembers, like he was there. And who knows, he may have been, is what Deku thinks. But Deku does not really care in the slightest. As he throws the Greater Demon, or not throws him, but sort of slices through the Greater Demon axe finally with the help of the two chain swords, he goes to try and start cutting into him. But the Greater Demon just takes a pole of where his axe was chopped in half and hits Deku right in, pretty much stabs Deku, right in the stomach, and throws him away. As several of the Marines see this, they see Deku being flung across the field, as he crashes into the ground way far behind them all. As All Might can't help, because, he's sort of deflated. As Deku sits there and, groans as he's grabbing his side, he's like, "Dang it! Ugh." He goes to stand up, but as he sees Sato trying to defend himself from the Greater Demon, but he's above average Space Marine, but still a difficult task, especially someone who's not a psyker. This demon just lashes out with his axe as he cuts Sato's armor right across the chest. So he takes a step back, grabs and smashes the ground, grabbing the rubble and then throwing it at his face. At this point, Hisashi is trying to finish up where the demon just jumped on him and sees Sato and all of them struggling. He sees in small portions where they're starting to lose a bit of ground, just because there's a lot more demons and such than there are Space Marines. And there's some pretty tough ones in there as well. With the Terminator squads losing a few people, it's starting to look bad. So Hisashi pushes the front as he pretty much charges at this greater demon trying to save Sato. Saying Blast trying to shoot at him, but realizing he doesn't have any ammo left, so he just chucks whatever melee weapons he can grab. So a few of them find the mark and start digging in from where they're still on into the greater demon. That lets out a little bit of a roar and then just turns to Hizashi. As Inko and all of them see pretty much Hizashi just charging this thing, he goes on forward, pushing, as then he pretty much stabs right into its leg as the greater demon just pretty much picks him up. As it grabs him with both hands and just lifts him up, saying, "I defeated your dreadnought. I've killed your greatest warriors. What makes you think you have any right to challenge me?" It, like, letting out its air superiority. As Hizashi says, "For those I cherish," as he pretty much holds up like as he stabs one last knife, he didn't stab a knife, he pretty much just has a knife in his hands, as he's like, "For those I cherish, I die in glory," as he has some form of explosive in his hands when he jumped at it, as in they go bang, as Hizashi's blown up. As the greater demon's flung back a bit, as his hand is gone completely, like up to his elbow is where one of his hands are left. He starts belling out his screams. Inko sees them flying. Deku and Izumi see him flying. As Hizashi is in pieces. He's lost a leg, an arm, and part of his torso. As he sits there in like a bloody mess, Izumi and Deku just lose it. Like full on black rage. But this is a different version of the black rage, because the black rage typically entails that they either think they're a space marine during the Siege of Terra, or they're Sanguinius themselves. Deku gets a bit of that, pretty much seeing what most black marines would do during the black rage, believing themselves to be Sanguinius. And with him having the wings, that's a bit extra flair. But with Izumi, it's far worse, because she doesn't just have the memories of Sanguinius, since, she is a grandchild, technically. She has the memories of the Eldar, who have been getting boned, essentially, by Chaos for the last 10 million, for, quite a few eons, we'll put. As she sees back to when the Eldar Empire fell, Slaanesh came over and ate all their souls, all that stuff that happened to them, she feels it. As even compared to Sanguinius' deepest the Black Rage, that ain't nothing. As they both let out their screams, it even sends a chill down the demon's spine. As Deku rips out the pipe as his healing does its work, and Izumi just starts just destroying everything with her psychic powers. She lifts Marines up, pretty much breaks them to pieces, casts demons back to the warp, or sometimes just outright killing them. Because it's a very, very few things can kill a demon. Most time when you just kill one, quote unquote, you just send them back to the warp, and that's about it. These ones, she lifts them up and just Thanos snaps. As the powers of a Space Marine are increased quite significantly when under the influence of the Black Rage. As Deku and Izumi both throw themselves at the remaining horde, as they just demolish what is left. Fulcrum pretty much panic calls Kurogiri asking for an evac. As Kurogiri shows up in just the nick of time, as Izumi and Deku are pretty much done with the horde. Even Greater Demon has been butchered. As they look over, Kurogiri feels a fear that he has never even felt, even in the presence of All For One. as they all just plop out of existence, or plop out of the USJ. As everyone's like letting out their cheers of excitement and happiness, a few of them realize, oh no, as they look over and Deku and Izumi are still under the influence of Black Rage. As you just hear Deku screaming, Horus! As you just hear Izumi just screaming, period. Like a very long war cry. As they stand there, everyone's just like, what do we do? What do we do against these? Librarians tried to take Deku and do something. As they very rare, I believe the Lamenters very rarely fall to Black Rage or Red Thirst, anything like that. As they see Deku standing there, he's screaming about Horus. As pretty much the Lamenters think, alright, let's try this. As they walk over, as Sato like bends down, as he says, Father. As he's thinking that maybe Sanguinius won't attack one of his sons. As Deku whips his head around and looks straight down at Sato as he sees him kneeling. But he does get the visage of a blood angel, not a, Chaos Space Marine. As Deku's about to go reach his hand down, he's immediately subdued by all the Psychers as they just put their collective might on him. As with Izumi, she's over there just looking for more victims, you could call it. As they get Deku somewhat restrained under the might of like 10 Psychers. As they're just like, what do we do? We can't bring him back from this. As they pretty much, as Izumi's given a bit of, Sato like goes over and tries to do the same thing with Izumi. Bending down and just like pretending like he's a blood angel. She gets it somewhat, but it doesn't work completely all the way. She's just sort of calm somewhat in his presence. It's like the battle is over, we won. As he's trying to convince her to just calm down, you could call it. There's only been one instance, I believe, of a blood angel being able to snap out of the Black Rage, and that was like Mephiston, and he also gained some cool psychic powers. And the reason why I believe it's not explained why he's, been able to chill out from the Black Rage. But, I believe it was that he was buried under a building. Yeah. And there's one, librarian, there's one, I believe it's a, what was it called? Not librarian, it's the Space Marines that's pretty much in charge of the religious side. Chaplain, there we go, sorry. As there was a chaplain that wasn't able to snap out the Black Rage, more or less able to keep himself controlled under it. He was still very angry, but he can speak normally. But anyways, I digress. As they trying to think what to do, as they pretty much just somewhat chain them up, as they take Deku, as they take both of them and take them back to the, headquarters, you could call it. As they somewhat keep them sedated, you could call it, as they pretty much bury them. And they pretty much bury them. Making sure they can breathe and such, but they bury them nonetheless, hang on, give me a second. Yeah, okay. I don't know if he was around the time. I believe he wasn't. And they typically put Space Marines who fall into the Black Rage in stasis. But let's say they have hopes, you could call it. Since they aren't full Space Marines, they don't believe the curse can be as entrenched in them, you could say. So because as they know what rage is, chemically, like with the chemicals in your brain, it will eventually dissipate. As this is what someone theorizes, like Inko, she theorizes that's what it is that they just need to get it out of their system. As they're just buried, as for days upon days. As that is very similar to what I said happened to Mephiston, since they couldn't think of any other way to hold the two of them. Because they can't just have all the Psychers pinning Deku down, and they can't just have Izumi sedated all the time. So they pretty much put all the Psychers with her, as then Deku's put under, like, the ground. He's just buried, alive somewhat, with air. He can breathe and such. As that's how it happens. And that's where I'm going to be ending this one off at. I hope you guys enjoy this. Hope you guys continue to enjoy this. And I hope you guys have a nice day, nice night, nice life.